Personally, I want the wall, but not at our expense. We're not the ones that can't come up with the decisions. They want us now to meet income tax refunds. Well, they can't even meet our paychecks. They should be the ones paying the consequences, not us. We shouldn't have to not pay our bills because they can't be grown up, mature enough to come to a decision.
One of the IRS workers who protested Thursday in Covington, Kentucky, union leaders say about 200 federal employees there are being required to work without pay to process tax returns. Well, joining me now, not too far from Covington, Representative John Yarmuth, the only Democrat representing the state of Kentucky in the House and the new chairman of the House Budget Committee. It is a lonely walk sometimes, my friend, but thank you for joining me.
Let's do it.
That's it. Let's talk about the shutdown and what the battle is really about. I mean, the president is certainly digging. He's aiming to fulfill his signature campaign promise. The Democrats don't want to give the president a victory. Can the shutdown be boiled down to just politics here?
Well, I don't think it is, Alex. I think what our position has been is that we've always voted for border security. We're for border security. We're for smart border security. We don't write blank checks for $5 billion. And if the administration wants a wall so badly, they ought to come to Congress, make the case, and see if they can sell us on it. But that's not what the president has done. He's just basically said, I want $5 billion for a wall. Now, we gave him in the last, Congress did, in the last Congress, gave him $1.6 billion for border security. He's spent only 6% of that. So if there's this emergency at the border, why isn't he using the money he already has? So this is really about, I think, being very good fiduciary officers and making sure that when we spend money, we spend it in a justifiable way.
Now look, Republicans have argued that Democrats at one point were willing to give the president over $20 billion, closer to $25 billion for border security or the wall. That's their interpretation, it was for a wall. Was that because DACA was involved? I mean, what changed?
Well, I think that there were stipulations on what that money would be used for, but I think what's changed is that the president has proven himself to be a totally unreliable negotiator. And just back in December, he told Mitch McConnell if they passed the spending bills, he'd sign the bills. Well, we passed them. The Senate passed them actually unanimously, and then he said, "No, I'm still on my $5 billion." And so, as Chuck Schumer once said, it's like negotiating with Jell-O. But I think there's a bigger problem in this situation, and that is that the president seems to think that getting the government back open is the concession that he needs to make to Democrats. That's not a concession. That's our fundamental responsibility, is to keep the government functioning.
Right.
So he's not making any concessions. He's making a demand, but absolutely offering nothing in return.
All right, a lot of topics I want to try to get to today. Next one being the fact that you were one of the first House Democrats to call for hearings on the articles of impeachment. What do you make of the New York Times report that the FBI started an inquiry into whether the president was working on behalf of Russia? I mean, does this give any greater sense of urgency to try to launch impeachment proceedings?
Well, I think it gives us, certainly it makes me very anxious about getting the information or some sense of what the FBI was relying on when they launched that investigation. It's very, very frightening. I mean, I think the two things that happened this week, that New York Times story, which should chill every American, that we potentially have a Russian asset in the White House. But secondly, the news that Paul Manafort had actually shared polling information with Russian operatives. I mean, you have there basically prima facie evidence that there was, I won't use the collusion word, I'll just say cooperation between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. You've got basically all the elements I think you would need to certainly warrant an impeachment hearing. Again, we're getting to the point, I think, I wrote something about this a week or so ago, we're very close to the point, and we're getting closer after this last story, that the Congress has, the only reason for Congress not to begin impeachment hearings is a political calculation, and that should never be the reason you don't do it. Impeachment's there for a reason, and I think we're getting very close to having a responsibility to begin that process.
I want to look ahead to next month because the president's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, who implicated him in the campaign finance violations, as you know, is set to testify for the House Oversight Committee on the 7th. Are you expecting any revelations that could then solidify the case to begin impeachment proceedings?
My guess, if anything comes out that's new, it would probably be something that relates to financial dealings with Russia, which may or may not be something that would warrant an impeachment charge. I think that's probably the territory that we might see broken for the first time. Ultimately, virtually everyone understands that there have been financial dealings between the Trump family and Russia. The Trump sons have actually bragged about that before, how they got money for their projects. So my guess is that might come out, but in terms of the other things, the basic question of obstruction of justice or cooperation with the Russians, probably nothing new.
All right.
It'll be good TV watching, though. There's no question about that.
We'll be watching, yes,
Highly
for
rated.
sure. All right, Representative John Yarmuth, always good to see you. Thank you so much for weighing in on all of it. Well,
My pleasure. Thanks, Al.
800,000 federal employees, they are either furloughed or